Lesson 14, t-tests. T-tests are part of what are called parametric statistics, including ANOVA. We're going to focus just on t-tests here. Parametric statistics always have dependent variables that are continuous, meaning they're either interval or ratio. They have to have a normal distribution, and their variances have to be similar or homogeneous. Those are the criteria. What we're going to do with t-tests today is learn about 4 different types, how to select the proper t-tests, and how to solve each of them. So the next section right here talks about the logical steps you need to make in order to select the proper t-test. And of course, with logic, you always have to do these steps in order. So the first logical step is how many samples are being used. Remember, we have samples and populations. So the first criteria is if one sample is being compared to an overall population, or is one sample being compared to another sample. Okay? So if one sample is being compared to a population, you have a second logical step you have to make. And again, a population is an enormous body, so you'd have to have one small sample of, say, less than 100 or whatever. It could be 1,000, but it's a lot less than a population, which is going to be 10,000, 1,000,000, something like that. So the next logical step is how large is that single sample? If it's greater than 1,000, we're going to use the single sample z-test. If it's less than 1,000, we're going to use the single sample t-test. The lessons below will show these tests and how to solve them. So if it's single sample compared to a population, we're going to use one of these options. But if it's single sample compared to another sample, which is quite frankly the most common experiment in all of psychology, one control group compared to an experimental group, we can have as little as 10 in one sample and 10 in another sample. Okay, very common to have a simple control group, simple experimental group. If this is your option, we have to go to logical step 2. And logical step 2 is what type of research design is being used. Remember these from the earlier lesson, between subjects groups and within subject groups. Between subjects groups, you have different people in each of the groups. If you have that sort of design, you want to use a t-test for independent groups, sometimes called independent samples. Within groups, or repeated measures, is when you have the same subjects in each level of the independent variable, sort of a test-retest idea. And since that one person is highly correlated to themselves, we use a t-test for correlated groups. Now we're going to explain each of these tests and how to solve them.